First thing we're going to do is we're going to unwind our warp thread. And we're going to do that by grabbing the side that's wrapped around the center of the warp butterfly. And once the center is unwound, it's folded in half, so you can just gently unwind it that way. And then what you're going to do is you're going to thread your tapestry needle by using the bunny ear method. And basically what that is, you take the longer end of your warp thread, you put a little bunny ear on the end like that so it just easily slips into the tapestry needle, like so. And then we're going to move this tapestry needle to the center of the warp thread, basically where we have it folded in half. So one side will be longer than the other, about 1.5 feet. So you can see there's a bit of a tail. Then you're going to take your loom and think of your loom like a wheel, and we're going to be putting the spokes on your wheel. There's 23 openings around the circumference of the loom. And so what you would do is visualize the openings numbered 1 through 23. And you can wrap your warp either clockwise or counterclockwise. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be going clockwise, and I'm going to continuously wrap the warp around the wheel like so. We'll take it one step at a time. We're going to come up at 1. And I usually put my index finger behind to guide the warp thread. And you can see there's a tail here. Leave a tail about 1.5 to 2 feet long, because we're going to be using that later when we secure the warp. So here we are at 1. We're going to go down at point 13. So you're going to count around. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's about halfway across the loom. And when you look at it, it does look like one side, there's more space on one side than the other. Then you're going to come up and around through the back, and you're going to put a warp on the back at 2. So you're going to come up with your tapestry needle at 2. You'll notice there's a V shape. And you see how 2 strands, because we had such a short tail, are starting to come up through together? Periodically, you're going to have to extend your warp thread so that you have more space. And you're going to slide your needle in a direction to lengthen your warp thread. So you're coming up at 2, and then you're going to go down at 14. You'll see an X shape. There's an X here. When you come up at 3, you notice there's also an X on the back. So both on the front and the back is an X. The other thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is your tension. When you're warping, your thread is going to be under tension. You don't want it to be too tight, but you don't want it to be loose. Do it so there's a spring. Tighten it so there's a bit of a spring to the threads. So you come up at 3, and you're going to go down at 15. And whatever you do on the front of a loom, see there's 6 spokes on the wheel here. You also see the same warp threads on the back. They're always crossing over. So now there's 3 on the front, 6 total, and there's also 3 here as well. Come up at 4. Come down at 16. Come up at 5. Go down at 17. Up at 6. Down at 18. Up at 7. and down at 19. Up at 8, down at 20, up at 9, down at 21, up at 10, down at 22, up at 11, down at 23, come up at 12. We're going to stop there. I know we need one more warp to complete all the spokes around the wheel, both on the front and on the back. We still have that one spoke that we have to do. So we're going to go ahead and finish that last spoke. And what you're going to notice is that directly across you'll see a V here that looks smaller than all of the rest. That's where you're going to tuck your tapestry needle under. You're going to go under all the warp threads on the top. You're going to bring your tapestry needle towards where you started. And that's going to complete, if you pull both ends, you'll see that all of the warp threads are drawing in towards the center. And now you have a spoke at each opening on your wheel. And what you're going to do is you're going to secure the warp by starting to weave around in a circular manner, either clockwise or counterclockwise, by going over and then going under each of the threads. So go over and then under, over, under, over, under. You're going to go around at least twice. Once you've gone around twice, you can secure the thread by using a hitch knot. So you do that twice so that the thread stays secure. Now you can cut off your tail so that it doesn't get stuck. And then you're going to turn your loom around because we still have to finish this last warp thread. However, before we do that, we're going to insert the crystal. So we're going to go ahead and slip it in there where there's an opening and put it between the two warp threads, the warps on the front and the warps on the back. So with the same technique that you did on the front, you're also going to do on the back. And it's okay if your crystal is sliding around a little bit or if it falls out. Put it right back in. Eventually this is going to be secure. So there's a small V on the opposite side where you need to complete this last warp thread. That's where you're going to tuck your tapestry needle and you're going to put it between the crystal and the warp. You're going to notice that all the threads are coming to the center, and that's what you want. And in order to secure the warp, you're going to do the same thing by weaving in and out just the front or the back warps. So if you're working on the front, just do the front. If you're on the back, just weave on the top the warps. It's really great that we're entering the crystal in there, and we can go back to our meditation, which is my heart is strong and soft and my emotional body is protected and vital. I give and receive unconditional love freely. So you just go around a couple of times. And to secure the warp, we're going to do that half hitch knot again where we take any warp thread and tie a knot around it twice. And now that that's secure, you can cut that off. So the green aventurine crystal, you can really place it anywhere that you want. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our yarn cake. This is indigo dyed, turmeric dyed. I recommend that you either cut this in half or in thirds because it is a long piece of yarn. It is too long to work with for this project. So you will need to cut it. And go ahead and thread the yarn in your tapestry needle by using that bunny ear method. And I fold the yarn almost in half just so it's a little shorter and easier to work with. You can see there's a bit of a tail. And now what we're going to do is start to weave not in these openings anymore, but in these, the negative spaces between the spokes. And we're going to start to line both the warp on the front and the back together. So we can really start anywhere. We can come up through the openings of the two spokes. And we can come back down the next opening between the two spokes. Now to secure this yarn, you can take off the other side of your tapestry needle and secure it with a half hitch knot. Just go around tight twice so it stays secure. And then you can just cut it so that it doesn't get caught up with your weaving. And we're going to go clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter which way we go. We're going between those spokes. We come up through the back, and then when we go down through the front. Periodically, you have to make your tail a little bit longer so that you have more yarn to work with and so that it doesn't cut up and get bunched up. We've almost made it around the crystal once, but we have to go around twice to firmly secure it in place. Now I'm going around the second time. You'll notice that when I went over 2 of the warp threads on round 1, now we're going under those warp threads. So it should alternate, and that's what links the crystal into the warp. Now that you've gotten a hang of how to do this weaving project, I think you should take this time to celebrate your accomplishments so far, because from here on out, it's really smooth sailing. My heart is strong and soft, and my emotional body is protected and vital. I give and receive unconditional love freely. yarn is getting short, so I'm going to go ahead and tuck it up and through the back of the weft. And then just cut that off there. I'm also going to cut this tail off to get that out of the way. We're going to save a little bit of the yarn for the end because we're going to go around the edge. I'm going to do a little bunny tail here so that we can thread the yarn. And we're going to hide the tail by coming up through these warp threads to get it started. I'll just sit there. And now we can continue weaving. It's just when you do your first pass, you just want to make sure you don't pull too hard because then your tail comes out. So just be loose. And when you're weaving, you don't want the yarn to be in tension with the weft. Think of it like a snake slithering through the woods, in and out of the grass. Just let it rest naturally, not too loose, not too tight. Okay, now we're getting towards the end, and so I'm going to go ahead and tuck this tail through the weft, like so. Just tuck it through and under, and it'll just be hidden in there. You can pull these back out. And just cut that off. Then we have one last step, and what we'll do is put some yarn around the edges to give it some definition. So I think I'd like it to hang like this, so I'm going to pick one of the openings up towards the top. And I will leave a tail because we're going to need that to use to hang. And then we're just going to go ahead and weave around the edges, coming back through those openings. Okay, so we went around twice. Now we have a little bit of yarn left over. We're going to keep that there so we can link it to our other intention mobiles.